Good evening, Star Wars fans. Coming to you live tonight with the the OCS Top 16 Selection Show. Uh, I am, as always, Dan Tartaglian, also known as the Tartag One. Joining me tonight is Mr. I'm a three-time world champ, Hall of Famer, current world champ, and the captain of the Redbeards himself, Joe Olson. How you doing tonight, Joe?
And let's not forget, person who did not qualify for this top 16 So happy to be here streaming the Picks show with you, Dan.
You know what? I know you did. You say you didn't qualify, but you've qualified quite a few times. So if there's anybody who's in a good position to talk about the OCS and what it is and everything, I figure it's you.
Yeah, this should be fun. I've actually wanted to do these shows before, but have been qualified and unable to. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this. This will be fun.
So again, we normally Chris Schoenthal, he does this. He sits in our position. He goes down, and unfortunately, he just creates the bracket. We have the bracket. We have the top seeds. We have some data as well for everybody to go over. Chris, unfortunately, is preoccupied tonight, so he reached out to us. We said we could do it. So here we go, everybody. So our top 16. First of all, why don't we go ahead and actually say who our top 16 is first? So to do that, the man with the data, it's himself. You can see that the bracket's technically up. Mr. Echo Base Trooper Adam Fletcher has meticulously went through all of our stats. So we have some background stats on everybody who qualified. So we have Steve Salucci, member of Team 5. Matt Harrison Trainer, perennial top 8 player, has won the OCS before, I believe. Brian Fred, our current Continentals champion. Timo Dussel, who just placed first overall in day 1 of Worlds. Brad Kipple, he plays every format. He's really good at every format. He's done really well in the OCS as well. Pat Johnson, this is his first time qualifying for the OCS, so congrats to Pat. Mike Pistone has been here before. He's a perennial top 8 player. Tom unfortunately had to step down, so in his shoes, we actually have Sam Tashima, who just this past year won his first event at the Indianapolis Eclipse event. JJD, Jared Konsker, again, perennial top 8 player. Ryan Jelson, known for his crazy decks, but on the flip side, he's made plenty of top 8s, including a world top 8 a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Tom Kelly, again, has won the NPC, has won a lot of other events before.
I think he's won the NPC twice.
Yeah. Tom has won the NPC twice. That's no easy statement right there. Chris Werfs.
Pause you real quick here. That sort of experience, I think we're going to see play into a lot of this, because now that we are in this top 16, it is all match play going forward, and that match play experience can make a huge difference when you're playing someone one-on-one.
Oh, I agree. So but that's where we're saying these players who made the top 8s before have had that experience with match play. I know Werfs, for example, at the Indoor Grand Prix last year, made it through 2 really hard opponents, had to face down Hayes in the finals. So again, perennial top 8 player. Charlie Arlinson, one of those players who again has made many a top 8s, hasn't had the opportunity of winning an event, but has been in a lot of people's shoes with the top 8s. Matt Wadden, top 8 players. Casey, again, just came in second to Worlds last year to Hayes. And then last but not least is Wayne Cullen. Again, I believe he's been in this position before when it comes to the top 16, but I'm not 100%. Don't quote me on that. So what are your takes on our top 16?
Yeah, it's a solid field. Like you said, pretty much every single one of these players has made top 8s, top 16s before, and has some of that match play experience. There are, I would say, a few favorites. MHT, and we'll get to more of his stats in just a minute when we get to his pick. But he's first on the clock for a reason.
Yeah.
Brian Fred is the reigning continental champion right now. He won a major just 2 months ago. So there are a few people who are like, all right, these people have multiple major wins, but then every player here is completely live to just run. I don't think there would be many that we would even call a Cinderella story because
No.
they're just solid players who consistently do well. And of course they had to be in order to qualify for this.
Yeah, and it's as people have said, like the OCS is one of those events where it's anybody's opportunity once you get into the top 16. I mean, yes, but let's go over some of the data right here. So again, Adam went ahead and determined the percentages for our players who played each other in the OCS. So, for example, Steve has only played one person in the OCS the course of this year. He is 1-0. So he's a 100% win percentage against his the fellow top 16
Yeah,
for
and
2024.
he's one of those players who's good enough to pop in. And the reason why he's only played one is because he only played for a single month.
Yeah.
He joined for a month in March or April, and he went 11-1. He beat one other person, I'm not sure who it was, who qualified, and then he beat 10 other people, and he just played the 1 month and qualified. He's good enough to be able to do that, and so yeah, that 100% win percentage is a little deceptive because of the low sample size, but obviously it's because he's good enough to just pop in, win a month,
yeah.
and pop out.
But I mean, if you look at that compared to Matt Harrison Trainer, who went 12-1, 92.3 win percentage over the year against these members of the top 16, that's insane.
I mean, it's completely ridiculous. And what's crazier about it is MHT's win percentage for the year was an insane 90+%. He went 65-7, which only Justin Desai's ever done better than that 2 years ago when he had his, I think it was 67-5 run. But this is probably the second best OCS season of all time. And the crazy stat is he was 90% against the field and 92% against the qualifiers. He did better against the qualifiers than he did against the field, which is just like
yeah,
ridiculous.
It's insane to see the level of play from a top player like Matt. Brian Fred went 2-1. Timo went 5-3. Brad went 7-5. Pat 8-6. Mike 8-7. Again, we don't have Sam, so I don't have Sam's data. JJD 1-1. But then you have like Ryan 5-7. Again, stiff competition with Ryan. I know Ryan is a player who he'll play something fun just because he wants to. But that's also could be just fun for him, not fun for everybody else.
Yeah, and for the rest of these, from Ryan on downwards, Tom and Werfs and Charlie and Matt and Casey and Wayne, they have a losing record against the other top 12. But obviously, that's just due to the fact that when you take a closed group like this and you say what were their records against each other, if some are above 500, some have to be below 500. So all of these, there's nothing to attribute to that other than they could have had a bad matchup, they could have had a bad game,
exactly,
or but all of these were players who. So Sam was the last one to qualify after Jim Tom dropped out, and I'm going to call him Jim Tom because the other Tom we have, Wise Marcellus, is still in there. So when I say Tom, I'll probably be referring to Wise. Jim Tom, after he dropped out and Sam came in, Sam qualified with the same record that Ryan Jelson had and Pat had, which were all three of them were 51-21, which is a 70% win, rounding out, it's 70.8. So 71% win percentage against the field. So even though these players, maybe had a losing record against some of the other ones here, they won 71% of their games overall over the last 6 months of qualifiers. So it's still just phenomenal records.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So, and then, again, Adam just sitting down, getting all this data. So, again, big props to Adam for doing this. We actually have the spreadsheet on who the people played. So, for example, right off the bat, Brad Kipple is 1-0 against Timo, but he's 0-1 against Mike Pistone. So, now this is something that comes into play. Like, you have those situations now. do you look at that in retrospect of who you're going to be playing? Like, so for example, Matt Harrison Trainer went 3-0 against Chris Wirfs, and 4-0 against Ryan Jelson. Or do you foresee maybe him playing against those players?
Yeah, I definitely think that can come into it because, for one, maybe your play style just matches up well into the decks they prefer. But also for two, sometimes you're just in players' heads. Sometimes it gets to a thing where you're just like, I can't beat this player. They always have my number. And riding that tends to not be a bad thing.
And like you just mentioned it about Matt, his one loss. His one loss was to Mike Pistone. So maybe that's a player that Matt wants to avoid. Is Pistone.
Yeah.
So, and then
real quick, shout out to Kiss My Wookie and Chris Schoenthal for subscribing on Twitch. If you are not subscribed, feel free to do so, especially if you have Amazon Prime. You can hook up your account to Twitch and give us a Prime sub, which is money at no cost to you.
Yep. All your donations, again, any donations that you do donate to the PC go straight back to the PC. All the wonderful stuff that you see, like for the streaming at Worlds, on all the events, the prize support, and if you do donate, and you donate over a period of time, you get nice little foils, like foils that you can't get anywhere else. So you're helping out the PC, and you're getting cool foils to show off on your streams. Why not? And then last but not least, Adam actually went through and listed all the decks that the players played. So again, if you're interested in looking at the data, all this data is on the PC website. Thank you, Casey. Thrawn was the most played dark side. No surprise there, considering Teemo made the top 16. And interesting enough, like ISB and CCT were the next two. Are you surprised by that?
No, because this is a retroactive look at pretty much the entire calendar year tournament season. And while I think CCT is much less popular in the current meta, I think the February, March, April timeframe, it was one of the strongest dark decks, and so I think it probably racked up a lot of stuff then. And ISB has been pretty solid most of the year as well, just as a good counter to hit code, just kind of a solid, when you're not really sure what to do with dark, ISB's usually not a bad choice.
Yeah, and then I was a little surprised to see only one Rots Vader. I know that you said that this was indicative of like the meta from February, but it was like right around, I would say a little bit after the Indianapolis April event, where we started seeing like Rots Vader coming up and being a deck. Are you a little surprised to see it as only one game?
So I think part of that also is the players who qualified. Dylan is a Thrawn player. And now, given that we're going into match play, I think it's quite possible, maybe even likely, I don't know, that he switches from that at some point in the top 16. But when it's just an open field where he doesn't know, where the tables are blind, he's going to stick with his bread and butter, right?
And that makes sense.
ISB was fairly high because we had both Jellison and Charlie qualify, and both of them play ISB quite a bit. Whereas Greg Shaw was 2 games away from qualifying, and I would bet he played some Rots Vader throughout the OCS season.
True, that's a good point.
And had he qualified, then we might be talking about, oh, look how many Rots Vader games there were. And so I think part of it's a function of who qualified, but then you also have this chicken and egg problem of like, well, did they not qualify because they were running those decks, and that's why those decks are low, or so I'm undetermined. I don't know how good those decks were throughout the time, but yeah, it is interesting to look at which decks qualified and what their records were. Look at that Watto there. It's 10-2. Yeah. I think a large part being driven by PMJ running with it the last month or two.
I was going to say, I know PMJ is historically like he's kind of a meta player, but at the same time he's not. For example, ASM. ASM Droidicas is one of his main decks that he likes to play. So the fact that ASM had 5 wins, maybe those are the 5 wins that Pat had. I'm interested in seeing the fact that the Walker objective went 5-0 after it got. I don't know if that's from the boost that it got when the last set, most likely. So, but to think about that, it got that boost from the last V set, that it went 5-0 in OCS play from these players. And then,
yeah, solid. And the other thing you have to keep in mind, though, is these players, again, the lowest player in our bracket had a 71% win percentage, the highest a 90. So between 70 and 90% win percentage, you're going to see a lot of high win percentages here. You're going to look at Brigham and say, oh, 67%. Look at that, my kind of scum, 58%. But all of these players, if their win percentage was 70 plus and a deck only went, 50% like Shadow Collective there, or even 58% like my kind of scum, you're going, that's maybe kind of underperforming versus what we'd expect from them.
Yeah, and then looking at the light side deck, again, Hitko obviously was the most played light side deck, but interesting enough, Anakin Saga, again, very popular. WAP was the number 3 deck. I mean, I'm not really surprised considering that Wayne and Pat are both made the top 16, and that's one of those decks that they like to play.
Yeah, and I know Pistone played it at both Nationals and Worlds, so I wouldn't be surprised if that had been his OCS deck for a while. And I believe I've even seen Jellison play it, but yeah. I wouldn't quote me on that. So, but yeah, WAP is a popular deck.
But the deck, besides the decks that have went 2-0, 1-0, the highest win percentage for light side was actually Agents in the Court at 93.8% with a 15-1 with a 15-1 record.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. And right above that, Clones at 86%. Yeah, interesting stuff. So I think it'll be a fun top 16, because I do think we're going to see some of these other decks that may not. I don't put it another way. I don't think we're going to see all Hitco versus Rotsmall matchups.
I really hope
we're going to see
don't.
A huge range of stuff.
And that's where I think that this top 16 is going to shine. Is we're going to see a wide range of decks. We're going to see, I can assume we're going to see decks like the Quiet Mind and Colony, or the Hunt Down, the Old Allies, stuff like that. But on top of that, I want to see the interesting games where it's kind of like a chess match, like you said, like maybe an Invasion versus a WAP, or Clones versus an ASM, something like that. Or even like the Ages of the Court that Ryan Jelson has played, the multiple variants of it. I would love to see that on stream. Speaking of which, all of these games will be live on the PC Twitch channel, so make sure you guys tune in to the PC Twitch channel whenever they're streaming. Unfortunately, we will have the ability to watch the games live on Gambit Disabled, so the only way you're going to be able to watch these games are through the PC Twitch channel. So what do you say, Joe? Why don't we get into the bracket? We've taken enough time of our all of the viewers, and why don't we go ahead and get into it?
Let's start figuring it out. So one thing I want to explain to the viewing audience before we get going is there is a little bit of a change this year in terms of how the bracket will be set. So first we have the pick selection, where the first player with the highest record, which was MHT, gets the first pick, and he can choose any of the other players. He has 15 choices. Once that person is taken, they're obviously off the board, and the next player, who is Dylan in this case, unless Dylan is picked, picks. And all of these players have either submitted a list or said they'll be here live, or if they didn't, they get the lowest seeded player who's left. So we're going to draft 8 different matchups through this process, and here's the change from the previous however many years, 5 years or so, is all of these matchups will be scrambled, and that will set our bracket.
So we'll do.
It was pointed out that what happened is the first place player, which in this case MHT, would pick his pick, and then he'd be the 116 game basically, and then all the other matches would happen, and then whoever was left unchosen And a lot of times that would be one of the, or both of the strongest players would have to match up against each other. And then they would be the round 2 matchup of that first person. And it kind of was a bummer to have the very best record, because that guaranteed your round 2 matchup was very difficult. So this year, it was decided, you know what, we're going to draft these 8 matches and then scramble it all. So it's going to be random. And then those 8 matches will be put into a bracket, which will be fixed at that point. And then everyone will know their opponents for the entire entire top 16.
So what we'll do is we'll actually put the pairings here.
Yeah, and then we'll put the pairings there, and then I'll pull up a random number generator, or Dan, you can.
Why don't we have you do it? Actually, you know what? Yeah, I think I can do it.
Sure. We'll pull up a random number generator, and then we'll basically assign numbers, and then we'll fill out this bracket. So that'll happen shortly after we get the 8 matches figured out.
Okay, so for our number 1 seed, Matt Hirsch-Treater, I believe he is in the chat now. He did submit a name. So Matt, would you want to tell the chat, or would you want to tell our viewers in the chat who you are picking as your number 1, as your opponent, or would you like us to do it? We'll give about like a 30-second wait, just in case he wants to. But then we can go into the match. We can talk about it a little bit. I mean, he could just have us on mute. Matt Harrison Trainer went with Michael Pistone. Thank you, Matt.
Interesting.
So what do you think about that?
Well, so I do have a little bit of inside information on this. Matt had shared when he sent in that pick, he made a comment that the reason why he was picking Pistone was that Mike had asked him not to pick him. So this may be a future warning for the rest of us.
Oh, wow.
Matthew may be a bit of a contrarian, and so don't ask him not to pick you. Next time, go next level mind games and say, I hope you pick me.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I read that he sent that in, it kind of, I'm assuming he just kind of picked it as joking for fun. Like, all right, Pistone. Yeah.
Yeah,
he just
I love it.
And
you know what? Mike is in the chat too.
He asked me not to, so I picked him. I was like, all right, cool. I agree. I think that's kind of funny. Well, and especially, and I didn't realize at the time that I read that comment, Pistone was his 1 loss versus other top 16 players. And he went, what was it, 12-1, and that was the 1 loss. And so you almost think, all right, he doesn't want to pick that 1 loss, but you go the other way and say maybe he does, maybe he wants to avenge that loss or whatever. And so I think that's I think it's unfortunate for Pistone, because that's going to be a very difficult matchup for him. And if I were ranking all of these top 16, Pistone would not be my first choice. Pistone wouldn't be in my top 3. I don't think he'd be in my top 5. So I think there are easier opponents in my mind that Matthew could have picked. And I think that makes it, obviously tough for Pistone. But I think it will be a very good match.
I agree. And it's interesting because, again, Mike pointed out he's the only player to beat MHT this year. And both these players have such a wide range of their deck types and everything. So I think it's definitely going to be an interesting match to watch. So I'm excited.
It's going to be a tight one. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to our number 2 seed. We have Timo Dusel. Timo is probably asleep considering it's like 1:30 over out in Germany.
He's probably in a Java game right now.
I can see it. He's playing all the Jedi.
Yeah, let's look at Timo's pick.
So Timo did select, he picked out 2 people, one of them also being Mike Pistone. Interesting enough.
However, Pistone was not his top pick.
However, Pistone yes, exactly.
Backup, so
Pistone was not the top pick.
His top pick, which...
Go ahead, Joe.
PMJ, Pat Johnson, is going to be playing against Dylan. And I think that will be an interesting match. Again, because like I mentioned earlier with Dylan, we have a pretty good idea of what he likes to play. And we just saw we have lists for it from Worlds of Thrawn and
Yeah.
0 Hour, and we know PMJ played Watto and WAP. So you have these sort of mind games where it's like, is PMJ going to stick on WAP? Does Timo add in Decree V? I don't actually know if his Thrawn already had that, but assuming it didn't, does he add that in? Does he switch decks? Or do they both switch decks? Or how does
Yeah.
that whole thing play out? So yeah, I'm that's the other interesting fun part for me is not just seeing them play the games, but seeing what they choose to play.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a very interesting point there, Joe, is seeing what the players play. I mean, we all know, like you said, Timo has been playing 0 Hour and Thrawn. Like, he's probably one of the best Thrawn and 0 Hour players out there. If you're Pat, do you consider him at, like, on the deck? Or would you think he's going to go to something crazy like, oh, I don't know, Hitco? How's that, Chris? That's easier than the strike through because
Okay, yeah, red is already chosen. Cool.
yeah, red is always going to be chosen. Okay,
All right, so next up we have Matt Wadden,
Matt
and he
Wadden,
submitted a list of picks.
and I don't
And
see Matt in the chat. But Matt, his first pick is out there, and his first pick is going to be Mr. JJD.
yeah,
Any thoughts
this
on? I think I think that's going to be a good match. Like, we know that Jared is, he's kind of all over the place when it comes to deck. Matt is kind of the same way. Like, these are two players who I can't really think of like a deck that both of them stick with all the time.
yeah, and the other thing I really like about this matchup is in my mind, I have these two players as fairly even.
Yep.
They both have made a number of top eights. I would probably give the nod to JJD if I had to pick a favorite because he has got second at an NPC to Hayes. He won the first Jawa Brawl going 12-0, so he's I mean definitely a huge threat. But Matt Wadden has made multiple top eights, not just like one,
Oh
but
yeah.
multiple top eights, and so I feel like both of these players are multiple top eight finishers, but always not quite there. And I could see either one of them breaking through at some point. And so I like this match in that I feel like it's a fairly good fight. It's fairly even, and it's going to be close.
I think it is going to be close. And this is, again, it's just one that I'm kind of excited about because we don't know what's going to be played. But moving on to our resident, besides Timo, who plays everything, including retro, all the sealed formats, Brad Kipple. Again, Brad is not in the chat, but he did submit a name. He submitted a few names, but his first pick is live, and it's your teammate, Steve Salucci.
Yeah.
So, this one I think is interesting. Matt. Brad kind of plays like Diplo, IE, No Idea, kind of like those kind of control decks. He's kind of known for those. Whereas Steve is more of like, I know, like, I think I played Steve at the Eclipse event. He was running QMC. So kind of a similar type of the players there, if I think so.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Mike Kessling just said in the chat, interesting pick, and I agree. And I think Salucci is one of the more underrated players in the game.
Oh, definitely.
I probably get a chance to play with him more than most people, and he's a super strong player. But his weakness is that he's busy with life and he doesn't get a chance to play a lot, whereas Brad plays a ton. And so that might, rust might be a factor with Salucci. He, like I said, he popped in for one OCS month back in April. He went 11-1 and qualified, and then didn't play any more games.
Yeah.
He played at the Indy Major, and then he showed up at Nationals to hang out. He didn't actually play, and so I don't know that he's really played much in the last 5-6 months. So that could be a huge factor in the game, but also, I wouldn't be surprised if Brad picked him just because there's not a lot of data on him. He doesn't, he played 12 games and that's it. And it's just, I think someone like Kessling says interesting pick because Mike knows Salucci and knows his history and who he is. And Brad, who doesn't come to in-person tournaments, may not be as familiar. So, it'll be, that is another one where I think it's a good match because I would give the nod to Salucci. Were he in shape? I don't think he is. And so this could be a very good one.
But I do think because Steve has that backing of players who, like yourself, Hayes, Jeff, who are almost constant with the meta and able to adapt to the meta, I think that is going to help him in the long run because, again, he has all you guys to kind of be like, hey, let's get some games on Gemp. And again, like you were saying, because Brad has that history of playing a lot on Gemp, I think that leans a little bit in his favor because the differences between playing on Gemp and playing in live are so vast.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, Steve isn't.
Yeah, and Salucci has made comments to me before about how sometimes he has trouble focusing on Gemp and how it's different from in person. And so, whereas Brad only plays on Gemp, so that's all he's used to. And so, that could definitely be a factor as well.
Okay, and so our next pick is Casey, who
also gets his number one pick. Everybody's just getting exactly what they want for this. So what will be curious, fun to me? Yeah, at some point we're gonna hit where it doesn't. But what's fun to me is that since everyone's getting their first pick, it'd be cool if there were some upsets. If it was like, oh, you picked me and then I beat you. Like I would love to see a few of those.
I was gonna say like a couple of years ago when Timo picked Joker King in the first round.
I don't recall that, but then did Joker King go on and beat him?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think that's fun to be like, all right, I'm calling you out, and then they come back and beat you. It adds a little bit more spice to it,
And Casey is going with Wayne. I like this pick. He says he wants to keep it in state. So, okay. I mean, do we have to play it on Gemp? Could we just go to like a bar in New York and just be like, hey, let's
we
play
want
it
streamed. I didn't actually realize that Wayne was from New York. So cool.
And interesting enough, because Casey, again, you feel like Casey's one of those players who kind of what he's going to play. Like, I don't know, the last time, I don't remember the last time I saw Casey play not Hunt Down and not some type of lightsabers for light side. So, and as Wayne, you have to be thinking that, like, is Casey going to bring out the Hunt Down? Is he going to be... Okay, yeah, he played... Okay, I don't remember that, Mike, because I wasn't there. So, but yeah, I think this is going to be an interesting one because Wayne he'll play... We're not on you yet, Charlie.
That's okay. That was my bad. I just messaged him on Slack and said...
I did the same thing.
I asked if he's on Twitch, he's up next, but...
Yeah. I was going to get to that, but why don't we go ahead and segue into it because Wayne was selected. We're going to go with Charlie with their next pick, and Charlie is calling out Mr. Chris Werfs. So interesting, like
and again, I feel like I'm repeating myself here, saying this is going to be a great match. This is going to be a great match. Obviously, when you have 16 great players, you end up with a lot of great matches. But again, here's another one where I've said of both Charlie and Werfs that they are two of the best players to have not won a major poster set.
Oh, 100%.
Constantly top 8ing. They're constantly, and I'm always shocked when I remember that fact because they're both phenomenal players, and I think they both should win majors, multiple majors. And so this is I guess if I'm looking at who's left, I'm like,
that's another thing. I was just looking at that. Like, if you're Charlie, do you want Ryan Jelson, Werfs, Tom Kelly, Brian Fred, or Sam?
Yeah, and
I'm two of those are his teammates.
Fred or Sam because they're teammates, so that limits his options a little bit too.
And Mike saying that he would have picked Werfs because he got people sick in Europe. I mean, that's
get revenge for the American flu.
Yeah. I'm gonna call it the Seattle. I called it the Seattle flu. But moving on, again, Mike Pistone, our next player, he was already selected, so we go down to Ryan Jelson, and Ryan will also get his first pick. And this is kind of a surprise. Ryan is going with the Tom Kelly. I mean,
that's interesting, and I can't. The only thing I can speculate here is Tom Kelly plays a very specific set of decks.
Yes.
And if you feel confident against those decks and you feel confident he won't change, then you're like, hey, that seems like an easy first round. If I think I can beat Watch Your Step, if I think I can beat the decks that Tom plays, and I don't think he's going to switch, then I'll just take him and pick decks that beat that for the first round, and then go into round two with different decks.
I mean,
so
it's
that's one thing. Let's pause the pick thing here and go over how that works. So all of the players have to submit decks for the round of 16 and the round of 8 at the same time. They're locked in, so they know who their opponent will be for the round of 16. They know one of two of their opponents, whoever wins the first round match in that one, for their second one, but they won't know exactly that opponent when they have to pick that deck. But that deck gets locked in, and then they'll play those matches. Assuming they advance, then there's a new round of deck selections for the top 4 and for the finals. And again, they'll know who their top 4 opponent is at that point. They will not know who they might face in the finals, but both decks will be locked, but they can be different decks. For the 16 and 8, they can be different, and then you get a new pick thing, and for the 4 and 2, they can be different, or they can be the same, or you can change a card or whatever, but you do need to lock them in ahead of time. So here, if Ryan Jellison was saying, hey, I feel confident, I can put Ys on these specific decks, and I can beat those decks, I can pick decks to beat those, and then pick more of my own preferences for the round of 8 or whatever, that could be what he's thinking.
The mind games on mind games when it comes to stuff like this is just pure insanity. After experiencing my first top 8 and having to go through that the night before, I'm so glad I'm not in this position. And also, like, everybody's saying, like, Tom is, like, you know what he's going to play. Do you really? Because,
so
like,
reading the chat here, Casey points out it's kind of insane. We had 7 different first picks, and Kessim says really insane. And I think that's just a testament to how varied this field is, how strong the field is, and how fairly even. There's a lot of just solid players that, and you might feel better against one than the other, and so you end up with a lot of different people's choices. And MHT echoes what we were saying about, you probably know what Tom's going to play, and so he kind of makes sense as a pick, but he is just always a tough out. Even when you know he's going to play his decks, he's still tough to beat.
Oh, 100%. And the thing is, like, Tom Kelly plays, like, really good decks. Like we were saying, he plays Old Allies, he plays Watch Your Step, and most recently he's been playing a lot of ROPS. And that ROPS deck is not fun to play against.
Yeah. All right, so the last match then is made by default. I do happen to know B-Fred's number 1 pick was Sam.
Really?
Actually, I'm kidding. He didn't submit list. He was far enough down that he was basically like, I'm sure whatever happens. He did not submit a list, but we can all pretend his pick was Sam, just to have a nice symmetry to the draft. But yeah, B-Fred, Sam, I think them being left last is sort of a sign of respect from all the other players. Basically saying,
definitely.
We had 7 different picks for who I want to take number 1, and none of them were Sam or B-Fred. And that's interesting, knowing that Sam only got in after Jim Tom dropped, and everybody's still scared of Sam, going, all right, he was on the edge of qualifying, just barely missed based on strength of schedule, and then made it in. He won a major this year. He's top 8'd like 3 or 4 majors in the last year and a half. He's just playing at a very high level right now. Everyone said huge respect to him, huge respect to B-Fred, who obviously just won Continentals 2 months ago, and they said, you guys go play each other, have fun. We'll deal with who's ever left of that matchup.
And it feels like we always get this, like, friend on friend fight when it comes to the new allies every year. And one, because there's so many of them, but two, it's just like Brian Fred versus Sam. This is going to it's going to be entertaining, but at the same time, it's going to suck. Because at the same time, like,
I don't know what you're talking about. It's going to be fun. The only disappointing part is it's not in person for Beef Brendan trying to do some kind of flying elbow drop or something.
I mean, if we can get a webcam on B Fred, we can get him live and as he's playing on the computer. And Sam in the chat is saying that this is a rematch from the first round of Continentals.
No, it's not. I played B Fred the first game of Continentals, like I play him the first game of every event.
In the top eight. Top eight.
Oh, top eight. Okay. Fair enough.
I think that's Sam.
Yeah, and as we know, B Fred advanced because he went on to win the whole event. And so maybe Sam looking for a little revenge here. Sam obviously had won the previous major. So we have the two last US major winners in Sam and Brian facing each other round one here.
And Mike is saying that he's going to send some of his magic on beating B Fred to Sam. Yeah, I mean, Mike has had a really good record against B Fred.
Yeah,
I mean,
all you got to do is get some of that magic. B Fred has been beating me a whole bunch in those games, so.
Well, it's simple. You just got to get him focused on something that's not Star Wars. So again, just bring up wrestling or bring up fantasy football. Fantasy football is probably the best thing to bring up against B Fred right now.
I don't know. B Fred's pretty good at focusing these days. All right, so the next step to this is, like I talked about earlier, or if you weren't here, we're going to take these 8 matchups, we're going to shuffle them all up in order to finalize our bracket. So people now who we've trapped them into continuing watching so that they can find out not only who they're facing, but who their potential rounds 2, 3s, and 4s are. So let's.
So I have a random number generator set up. So I was thinking if we do
all right, let's generate it. Let's do it this way. Have it generate a number from 1 to 8.
Yep.
And the first match up there will be the MHT Pistone. 2 is Dylan PMJ, blah, blah, blah. All the way down to the 8th match is B Fred Sam. And we'll just start up at the 116. You'll random generate 1 to 8. And whatever number that is, that match of those 2 people will go in that 116. And then over on the right-hand side where 215 would go, we'll generate again from 1 to 8. And if it lands on the same number pair that was already picked, then we'll go ahead and have it regenerate another time. And we'll put that match in. And we'll just keep going down as if we went 116, 215, 314. But we'll have it pick which of the players are going in there.
Yep, I like it. Okay, so
all right,
we'll go ahead and do that. And our first one, oh, I'm on my wrong screen. Sorry. So match number 4.
Okay, so 4 is Brad B. Kipple and No Limit, Brad and Steven Salucci. So they will be the 116 there. Yeah, as the rounds go, we might start hitting the same numbers again, and we might just renumber them from at that point 1 to 4 or something and regenerate, and that's fine.
Number 2 is going to be Casey.
All right, so Casey and Wayne are in the upper right.
And again, we will have a bracket contest for this.
32.
So once we get this filled out, I'll go ahead and enter the bracket contest, and it will go live right after the show. Next one is going to be MHT versus Pistone.
They'll be in the bottom right. Can you shrink the generator a bit so we can? Right now we can't see the bracket. Yeah, that works. That's perfect.
Two is Timo.
Okay, so they go in the 413 spot.
And then we'll do 5 and 12. Is Jelson and Tom. 3 is
Mike Pistone asks, No Limit isn't the 16 overall seed, right? Otherwise, you never get to pick decks. Well, first of all, he will never get to pick decks. So, picking decks, interesting. I don't know if this was discussed. I was gonna say picking decks should be based on the overall finish. Yeah, it's based on the overall finish. So, the order in column B, where it goes MHT, then Timo, then Wadden, then Kipple, that was the order finished in. That is the higher seed.
Yeah.
And so when you are playing somebody, whoever finished with the better record in the OCS is the higher seed, and they will choose decks.
Like, for example, say Pat gets past Timo in the first round. Because Ryan is the higher seed over Pat, and say Ryan wins over Tom, Ryan would then pick the sides in that one, versus if it was Tom versus Pat, Pat would pick.
Yeah. It would. So Jesserdim, it wouldn't be the person on the top of the bracket, because we're randomly shuffling around. Like, we might end up with like if MHT played Casey if you move the thing real quick, Dan, MHT right now is in the number 3 spot and Casey's in the number 2 spot. If they had both advanced all the way to the semifinals, Casey would be the higher seed on this bracket. But that's only because we randomly placed MHT down there. That has nothing to do with their actual seeds or why he's there. This is just to randomize things.
Yeah.
For actual seeding purposes, for picking decks, it's based on their finish during the season.
Okay, let's see. We got that one
already.
Okay,
so continuing, let's see. We're only left with 2 matches, right?
Yeah, so it's...
So just generate a number from 1 to 2, and... Oh, okay, you just kept going until you hit it. Cool.
Yep. That's fine. Which means that, again, last... Man, nobody wants Brian, Fred, or Sam.
Yeah, we can put their original seed numbers next to them. Let's do that real quick. So, Kipple's 4. We have to subtract 1 from the number next to it because No Limits.
Oh, here. I'll do it.
15. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Nice. Change that to 15.
Yeah.
No, it's not irrelevant arguing. Arguing is the entire reason I play Star Wars cards. There's nobody better to argue with than Star Wars card players. Jeff was insisting today in the Team 5 chat that we have free will, which is just ridiculous. And him and I have had many hours of conversation on this. But no, of course, arguing is most of what we do.
That's why we play a lot of Avalon and Secret. Thing who should not be named.
So Jeff says yes, free will. Me, Hayes, Kyle, Eric all say no, and Jemek says, well, I want it to exist, but I'm not sure. And Jeff says, I'll take it.
Okay, so there is our bracket.
Against it. It's just, yeah. All right, I'm just filling air here while we get those seating numbers fixed. So can you move the whatever you're working on now, and we can
that's the challenge bracket.
Yeah. So after we go off, Dan's gonna update that challenge bracket. The links are already on the forums. You can go out and fill out your who you think will beat whom on this bracket. But those numbers are the correct seeds there for deck picking purposes. But beyond that, it's all random now, but locked. This is the bracket that they are going to play all the way to the finals.
Yeah. And so if you're watching this, if you are part of it, if you're worried about deck picking, don't look at the challenge bracket. Look at this bracket. This is the official bracket.
Yeah, or there's plenty of places they can look in the OCS sub forum. There's a link to the cumulative qualifying thread, and that has everybody listed in order. So I think they'll easily know who is the higher seed.
Okay. Nobody would like this
Cool.
go to the sheet.
What do you
Click.
think,
It's
Dan?
gone. Kidding. Saved to my PC. There.
What do you think about this OCS
Um.
playoffs?
So right off the bat, so for a player who likes, I don't want to say drama, but or conflict. What's the word I'm looking for? I can't think.
Um,
For someone who likes the background, who likes the story of it,
Intrigue.
yeah, who likes the intrigue of it, I'm definitely intrigued because there's a lot of good matches. Like first of all, the match that I'm probably the most excited about, obviously, is probably going to be Sam and Brian, just because they are two teammates.
Hmm.
Outside of that,
I think if I have to pick a match on this that I think is the most interesting to me, it'd be Charlie Worfs. I think that's
I
gonna be
was thinking that, but at the same time, I'm looking at the Ryan Jelson versus Tom.
hmm.
And the main reason I'm looking at that one is specifically because we have a very, I don't want to say narrow, but a very focused deck style versus a Scott-esque deck style. So it's like out of all these players, I would say Ryan is probably the wild card when it comes to deck building. Yeah, again, Carl points out clones versus Huntdown is going to be kind of fun to watch if we see that. But on top of that, like the fact that Matt picked Pistone as I thought it was funny. I love that.
Yeah, that'll be good. I think Wad and JJD. There's gonna be a lot, and the meta is so wide right now. We're gonna see a lot of different stuff. So the top 16 and the top eight start in 1 week on October 15th, which is when the deck lists are due, and then that will run for about 2 weeks. Um, and so we will see basically the second half of October. We'll see 2 rounds of um, and into the first week in November. Actually, we'll see the first 2 rounds of the top 16, and then starting November 5th, we will have the semifinals and finals. So probably should wrap up just before Thanksgiving. So
Yeah.
first 2 rounds by Halloween ish, and then the second 2 rounds by Thanksgiving ish. And so got a couple good months of some great games that will be streamed.
Okay, Joe. It's that time. I got to get you. I got to get you on record. First of all, let's go with your top four, and then I want your champion.
Uh,
Your final four and your champion.
uh, MHT's gonna win. I mean, just playing. He's the strongest player in the field. He had an insane run this month, and I think well, maybe not the only reason. I will say I personally breathed a small sigh of relief when I heard he was too busy with life stuff to attend a lot of the majors this year, and sigh of relief in terms of competition. I would love to see him there. I hope he makes it to Vegas and all the other majors next year. If he does, I think that's takes a hit to all the rest of our chances. So I think MHT is strong favorite here. Beyond
Um,
that, top four, if I'm looking for one in each, I mean, that takes the bottom right, top right. I'm going to go Werfs. Top left. Um, that's tough. I think that's the toughest bracket. I think I don't know. I obviously don't want to pick against Slucci. I don't know that he's in shape. Sam and Beefred, I don't even know how to pick between those two on who's going to win that one. I pass on the top left. Um,
no, you can't.
all right, then I'll say Sam.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
and then bottom left, I'm gonna say Jellison.
You're going with Ryan Jellison. So you said Werfs, MHT, Jelson, and Steve?
And Sam.
And Sam. Okay. I'm going to go with B. Fred. I mean...
What's that?
I'm going to go with B. Fred. I'm going to save the bottom left for my last one. Hi. I'm gonna go with Charlie. Charlie's due. I think we're gonna have an upset in the top 8 with Matt Wadden. And last but not least, oh, this one's hard. This is the hardest one for me. I'm gonna go with Timo, and
It's
winner.
difficult because I'm like I pick Werfs, but then I'm like, but also I think Charlie is just like such a strong player.
I think Charlie's due.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the case in every one of these brackets. I'm like I can see. Yeah, I get Timo, Tom Kellett. All of these players are just so good. So
yeah,
it's gonna be fun to watch.
And then as for the person who I think is going to win it all, I think it's going to be Charlie.
Cool. All right. I have to head out because kiddos are getting impatient and they're like, why are you taking so long?
Yeah, it's been an hour, so honestly, I think the bracket contest is now live. If you guys want to go join that, it is live up on Challenge. Again, predictions are up there as well. So get out there, do your predictions, get everything going on there. Joe, thank you for doing it. It has been a fun hour, and good luck to everybody else.
Yeah, my pleasure. Looking forward to seeing the games, maybe streaming some.
Okay, until then, everybody, enjoy yourself, take care, and as always, may the force be with you.